Hey guys, it's Deconic here, and in this video we're going to be going over Necromancer from a minion focus point. We're going to be going over the community's current concerns regarding minions, their survivability, and all that good stuff later on in the video. We're going to also cover why we are speculating or why we think minions will actually be really good come launch, and how to utilize minions to their fullest potential. So the first thing we'll be addressing is the community's concerns regarding minions. So what did the community have to say when we think of the server slam and minions? For that, I will just give a brief history for those who didn't play during the server slam. When the open beta weekends came around, Necromancer was really strong, minions weren't dying, they were OP by all means, by all metrics. It was really bad. They just were unkillable, and this was with barely minimal investments. We didn't really need to put any points in. Yes, everyone would buff up their minions with their skill points, but the power we got from said buffs were just insane. So after the beta, Blizzard decided to nerf Necromancers, and then came Server Slam. Now in Server Slam, minions died to the enemy breathing on them. So if they so much as winked at skeletons, they would die. It was very bad. And this was patched mid Server Slam to where they became a bit more survivable, but nowhere near like what they were before. And a lot of people had complaints regarding this, regarding why we have to deal with minions that are this squishy, and how this is just not fun to play. And I do side with the vast majority on it's not fun to just have a class that does nothing but resummon skeletons. That's all you're doing. You're just resummoning your minions, resummoning. You barely even have breathing room. But I also disagree in some places where I think it actually is still good, and we'll be covering why I think they are more than just viable. They are actually strong. So why do I think minions will be just fine despite what the server slam showed us and everyone else's opinions on the minions being just too squishy and awful? Well, the reason is, in the past couple of days / weeks, I have been planning my build around launch, just so I am more organized and I know where I'm putting my points. And I have kept looking at the nodes that I could potentially take, not only on the tree but on the Paragon boards, and I will also lightly touch the Paragon boards, but the nodes I can take. And I'm like, these minions will actually be really tanky. Like they will be, not only will they be able to sustain being alive for prolonged periods of time, but you might actually be able to get them stronger than they were before the nerfs. Like, you can achieve the first beta weekend Necromancer dream of keeping you alive, never having to replace your minions. Now, this is a bold claim, and of course I don't have any in-game tests to back this up. This is just what I can see from the skills and how I feel based on what I have seen. So I'll show you a couple of the nodes that really, you know, piqued my interests and why I think they're gonna be good. First nodes, I mean, we all know the Skeletal Warrior, Mastery, Skeletal Mage. These are normal. They increase your minions damage and life by a certain percentage, increasing for each level. So like for Mage, is going to be 60% level 3. This is going to be 45% level 3. This is, we all got to this point in the server slam and they were still very squishy. But keep in mind, in the server slam, we only hit level 20. Level 20, yes, by that point your minions are still probably going to feel really bad. One really good thing I noticed during the server slams, I think minions do benefit from 45. I think they inherit your 45, and as such, speccing fully into this node and having a lot of 45 means your minions are going to be dying less. So not only that, we have access to something like Decrepify that just reduces the enemy's damage by 20% for whoever you cast it on. This is really good for bosses to make sure your minions are in one shot. But the big game changers are all down here. Sadly, they are so far away, but once you get to like level 28, I believe you should be fine. And the nodes that I'm talking about in particular are these two. These two change the game for you. This less so than this. This is the most important, but this is also pretty good. This one is really strong for bosses. It makes sure you summon your minions and they don't just get wiped out like they were during the server slam. It makes it so every instance of damage your minions take cannot, from level 1, it cannot be 100% of their life. So they can't be one shot. Literally, they have to be at least 2 shots from level 1, and then this goes down to, I think it was 45% of their max life. So it gets to the point where they would take at least 3 hits to die, and this is of course ignoring everything else that has come to this point. So like, you're gaining health every level. I think they're inheriting that. If they're not, they're still getting tanky every level just from base stat growth essentially. But you get down here, you spec into Death's Defense, you spec into Bonded in Essence. This is really good because by level 3 of this, you have 60% healing on your skeletons every 5 seconds. And of course, all you need to do is keep your skeletal priest healing every 5 seconds. They get 60% of their health, and this is ignoring that 10% they actually get through the duration. Because I know one of the worst parts of the server slam was having a low skeleton that you would have to call a skeletal priest for, and that would just heal 10% instead of replacing a skeleton. This, once you have this, the healing actually would feel substantial in my opinion, because 60% of their max life is still 60% max life. You know, this is an average of like over, this is 70%, so this is like an average of, let's say 13% max life heal every second. Now of course it's a one-time big heal, so it's not that, but if you're able to manage your priest, which you will want to for damage, your skeleton should be alive. Then of course we have things like this, but these ones are mostly damage. These are reasons why I think they would be good for damage. Then your ultimate has this, which would allow you to just instantly raise all your troops should they have been wiped on bosses or whatever. Specking into this gives you your skeletons back. Specking into this makes it so these volatile skeletons that this ultimate summons to explode would leave behind a corpse, allowing you to better sustain your minions. So once you actually get down here at like level 24, 25, I guess it's 23 based on this, 24 rather, then your skeletons or your minions will start ramping up very quickly. They would stop feeling like this force that you always have to replace to this force that can actually stand their ground to some degree. They're not gonna be, not dying at Shava or anything. They're not there yet, but this is a good start. Now from here you can easily spec into more damage reduction. From here you can go into taking less damage when they're close to you, which I should think your minions would inherit this, but if they don't, then it's not the end of the world. Then we move on to the Paragon board, which further backs up my feelings on minions actually being decent. And the board in question is going to be Cult Leader, because I feel like your golem is going to be fine, and we're going to look into hulking monstrosity. But look at the stats that are on this Paragon board. You have minion life, minion armor. These are percentages, by the way, so this is really good. You have of course the magic nodes that would have these stats. So already you have tankier minions. You have armor on your skeleton warriors here. On some magic nodes you have damage. You have damage and attack speed. This is for everything, golems included. This one gives you resistances to your skeletal mages, and of course the magic nodes support this. This has just flat damage reduction for your skeletons, 10%, and then a further 10% on the bonus, so that's 20% free damage reduction for your minions. And this does not of course include the magic nodes that give you 5%, 10%, so that's 30% damage reduction. this is going to be the biggest node for your survivability, and this is probably going to be a must-have on minions. And to be honest, I think we are probably not even going to spec into every defensive node for minion, just because I think by this point we are gonna have minions that just will not die, so there's no point in specking into more defenses. Now this is going to be touch and go. You will, when you get to this point, you will spec into damage or defenses as you need. It's gonna be a case of, I can't tell you how much defenses you will need. No one can tell you this at this point. We just have to wait and see what the beta holds. But for now, these are really good stats that you would want on your minions, and when you have them, your minions will probably just never die. And of course, you can easily stack things like on your offhand. You can have minion life there. That should help your minion survive. Like I said, 45 helps. So having 45 on the damage reduction while 45 on Sapphire could help. Again, this is speculation. I don't know for a fact that they actually benefit from your 45 reductions, but I should think they will. I hope Blizzard do come out with like a document of things your minions inherit from you or not. Fingers crossed they do. If they don't, then we just have to get with the program and test it out, you know. But we'll see how it goes. So these are, with all these reasons, I think your minions should actually be pretty good. I think they should be pretty good. So moving on, we're just gonna be making a rough build to show what I will be doing come launch. And first things first, for the essence generation, we're going decompose, just because this is the only essence generation that actually allows you to get corpses without hued flesh. And I don't like relying on hued flesh just because of how lucky hits interacts with the chance to create a corpse. It's not a reliable source of corpses, at least not early. And as of this moment, I do not know if your minions can actually apply hued flesh. I don't think they can, because I'm not entirely sure minions can lucky hits and proc lucky hits, lucky hit effects essentially. So I wouldn't bet on it. I would still spec into this a bit later, but for now we're not going to be relying on that. We're going to be using decompose. We have two options here. We can go sever, which I kind of like, because then you can actually get movement speed with darkness skills later on. Or you could go blood surge, which is really good for sustain. It's good for AoE. It's good for sustain AoE. It's really good for mob clearing, essentially, when you need to do damage, if your minions don't just clear everything, and you know. So really, the one you go, it's up to you. If you do go blood surge and you notice the damage falling off, you might want to switch to sever. But either way, I think I will be personally trying this out and eventually be respecing so I can get vulnerability with sever when I start meeting tougher bosses. So let's actually just put that now. Let's get vulnerability, and then we'll just put as many points into this as we go along with our masteries. So now that we're at 4, we're here, we get skeletal mage. This is still a point where we're struggling with survivability, so we get decrepify. This is for bosses, for monsters that are tougher, so they do not do as much damage to your skeletons. Then we go all points into this, which is every time you create a corpse you get 45. This is really good. We go all points, then we come back and we fully spec into sever. Now that we have sever fully spec'd into, we can decide to put a point in there. Then we obviously want some essence generation from there, and we are solid at this point. And we are finally at, like I said, level 24. This is the point where you want to really buff up your minions, and you can go for your ultimate first. This is just preference, you know. If you think your minions, your skeletons die too often, which I think will be the case at this point, then just put a point into here and fully spec into this, then get your healing, and then finally your ultimate. Once your ultimate is in, we're going to be putting points into Golem Mastery until we get this. Then we get Kalan's Edict. We fully spec into this just because I want to use a golem that would have a decent amount of damage. So I think this would be good. But remember, you can always just delay this for for this instead. Just increase damage when you're close to them, and when you've been healthy, they gain attack speed, which is kind of what you get from this. You know, they kind of really complement each other a lot. So you have your choice after you go into this and this. You can go for Golem Masher before you go for these two. It's really your choice, but in the end, you should have something like this if you want minions. These are kind of all very nice nodes to have, and from this point on, it's very it's subjective what you want to go for. I personally will be going something like this to just increase damage. I will go this. I might go for some movement speed here. I could go for hued flesh like I said, but at this point I think my corpse generation would be so good that I would probably be on specking out. Like, I would probably be removing this from my toolbar, and then instead of trying to get more corpse generation, I just go for movement speed. And yeah, with this, get more damage from curse enemies, which realistically you'd be cursing bosses you're facing. So any boss that you have to stay at, you would want to curse, and that would increase the damage they take from you. You of course also want to use this, so whenever you use your ultimate, you have a chance when you're spamming Sever to refund, like reduce its cooldown by 15%, or reduce its active cooldown by 1 second rather. I don't see this being all that impactful unless you skill lucky hit, but it's still good quality of life. And if you're more worried about wave clear, you can go for this one that just makes all non-bosses die at 10% health, which is essentially like a 10% more damage multiplier, because they just don't have 10% of their health effectively. For the warriors, you're going to be starting off with Reaper. Like, obviously level 1 you can only get skeletal warriors, and you want the skirmisher. It was skirmisher warrior. You want the additional skirmisher warrior up until you get to, like, I think it's level 8. Then you get the chance to carve flesh from a corpse. This is really good for your 45. This is what is going to be really generating your 45 for you. What's going to keep you at 100% 45 for as long as we can have it. Then for here, we want essence generation. Eventually, maybe you'd want to switch, but I know in the early game I'm going to be going essence generation just as quality of life. And for the golems, you can go for more corpses, or you can go for damage reduction, for increased damage, because this on paper is really good. You have damage reduction and then times 50% increased damage with whenever it's active, I believe. I could be wrong on if it needs to be active to benefit from this, but it's really good. Like, this is gonna be healing itself, so it's gonna be healthy a lot. It's a golem, so it's tanky. You have all those nodes that would make it have more health and just more defenses, and then eventually when you get into the Paragon board, you can then spec into like Hulking Monstrosity board and get even more damage, get even more sustain for it, just so it stays healthy longer and it keeps that damage buff. And on your gear, you typically just want movement speed on your boots, because we have no movement skill, so movement speed is really good. If you can find it on any gear, that'll be good. We have a couple of aspects that are really good in the way of blood getters aspect and Codebringer. No, not Codebringer. Vicious aspect. These two that increase maximum number. These, you're going to be using them in the late game, but I'm not going to put them in because, well, I will put them in, but you're not going to bank on them. They are nice to have, and eventually you would want them on your weapon and amulet, but till then you just want to keep all your aspects on either gloves for the offensive ones and rings also for offensives, or on other pieces that are not as important to replace, because when you're going through the campaign, you're going to be switching your weapon out a lot, because this is the biggest damage increase you can have. And I think there are more than enough videos out there telling you why it is important to not put your aspects while leveling up on your weapon. And with that, that is essentially the build I'm going to be going on launch. I think minions are going to be good. I think I will still be able to maintain good speeds compared to other people. Maybe not as much as like certain, like maybe some rogue builds or maybe some druid builds, because druids I feel also scale really well. So I might not be able to keep up with certain early game classes, but I do think once I get to that level 28 and my damage starts and my minions survivability starts ramping, I will just keep going and it will feel really good from that point on. Advice I can give is you could even decide to just ignore minions, sacrifice them, ignore all these points until you get to like level 24 then or 28, then respec, and at that point you should have minions that can actually eat damage or at least sustain up and stay healthy. It's really your choice which of these routes you decide to go. I will be using minions from day one because that is my playstyle and that's how I like to play. But in the end, no one can tell you how to play. Do you agree or disagree with what I had to say? Let me know in the comments below. I want to hear from you. Also consider joining the Discord server. You can find a more detailed version of the build that I was working on today, complete with a glyphed version or a no glyph version for if you just haven't got to the point where you have those glyphs or they're not leveled or whatever reason. You have that for you. I'm also accepting reviews if you want this. Of course, this is based on how much free time I have, but I will be reviewing quite a lot of builds. So feel free to drop a link here and I'll get to it when I can. And with that said, thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.